Could you talk a little bit about like what music licensing is, especially
Yeah,
people that watch this that might want to be using music in their YouTube videos,
totally.
and if you're, just online music libraries versus like licensing like a song from like a bigger artist type, kind of
Yeah.
what it is and how that works.
The nuts and bolts of what we're talking about where songs are concerned is there's two things from the song that we can protect, and it's the lyric and the melody, right? So like the thing that you would whistle as you're going away, and then the actual words that are being sung. That's on this thing that we call the composition, or it's also known as the song, right? They say it's an underlying composition. Now, everything that you're hearing in the music business is someone going into a recording studio and making a recording, a sound recording, or they used to call it a master, of a composition. And if you think about it, it makes sense because you can't walk into a booth and sing nothing. You need to sing a thing, right? And that's the underlying composition. The best way of kind of thinking about it is Frank Sinatra never wrote a song in his life, but he sang hundreds of recordings on Capitol Records. But a bunch of people wrote those songs that he sang. So that's kind of the distinction that we make, that Frank's a recording artist, and then a bunch of people wrote those songs that he did. So if you're, what people often find that they're getting in trouble with, or that they're concerned with online, is that they want to be able to use someone's underlying composition, and then what they don't think about is this master recording. These two things exist in tandem together. But the cool thing about here in the US and 126 other nations is that we've agreed that protecting people's expressions of those ideas has value. So a lot of people know about patents. We've seen the little registered R or the trademark against logos and those sorts of things. We kind of understand that from like a regular perspective, like my phone that I'm holding up, it's like 100 or like 1,000 some odd patents that are involved in just this one particular screen, right? I think the joke was like, there's a Samsung screen and the Apple iPhone. That's a patent, you know? So we understand that side, but then the copyright of like protecting ideas is something that is a little less familiar, but it's really analogous, the same thing. And so when you create this thing, they call it fix your idea in a tangible medium of expression, immediately you get bestowed what's called the bundle of rights. And the bundle of rights are literally property rights. So like if you own a home, you own a car, you own those sorts of things, like you can do a bunch of stuff with those things. You can rent them, you can sell them, you can lease them, you can do a whole mess of stuff, right? You can do the same thing with your copyrights. They're property rights. They just originated from a thing that you thought of, right? So because we protect those rights and you have what's called this exclusive limited monopoly on how you can interact with them, the intent is that you're able to monetize this stuff. And if the market deems it popular or something that's valuable, you can make money off of it. And then they incentivize you to do it because you could potentially make money for generations to come, right? So an individual gets protected from the moment of origination for their life plus 70 years. Okay, cool. That's a whole bunch of like, we just set the table for the other question that you asked. So now because I have these bundle of rights, and because I've fixed my idea in a tangible medium of expression, I have these copyrights that I can do stuff with. Now the intent is for other people to use them in circumstances that I can benefit monetarily from, right? And so if that's the case, I want, in concept, I want as many opportunities for my song and potentially my master recording to be used as possible. So
Through a license.
yes. So the way that we do that, there's two things. Is now what you're talking about specifically is marrying music and motion picture at the same time. That's called synchronization. So we're literally taking the moving picture on one side and we're marrying it to sound in some way, shape, or form, whether that's Foley, sound design, or actual music itself, so that they move in synchronicity with one another. So we need two things in order for that to happen. We need permission to do so. That's the license. And we need to agree on a fee. Those are the two things that are necessary. And I need to do it for what we call both sides of the copyright. I need to do it for the underlying composition that I was talking about, and then that exact recording, which is that master recording, that is being sung, right? So I do that through a license. I do that through a license traditionally on the song side. That happens with the publisher. Traditionally on the master recording side, it happens with the record company. Those are the entities that tend to own those two sides of the copyright. And so that's what I need to do. Now, if I'm looking at a YouTube perspective, there's two variants that happen here. Either you're going through a music library, and I'm sure a bunch of people that are listening to this, you understand what Artlist is, Epidemic Sound.
Epidemic, yeah.
Right? Marmoset Music is another one. Killer Tracks is another one. I'm sure some of us have done some corporate videos where Shutterstock is a place that we go to. I know Pond5 has stuff, right? What's the other one that's popping into my head right now? It'll hit me again, right? But we've got dozens of them, right? Music Bed, all that stuff. What you're effectively doing is, in some way, shape, or form, let's say you do the subscription part of Epidemic Sound, okay? Now, a lot of us are familiar with, we're registering our accounts. We register our YouTube page, we register our Instagram page, we do those sorts of things. And if you get an enterprise account, you have the ability to assign licenses to the projects that you work on for clients. What you're doing, Epidemic Sound, actually, the people that create it are creating both the composition and the master at the same time. So one license, it's called a one-stop shop. One license covers both the master and the composition, and it's assignable to whatever client you want to. It's really good because it makes our life as video producers a lot easier because we don't have to go through and the client doesn't have to worry about it, right? A lot of times people get nervous. You put something up on YouTube, you get a copyright notice or a copyright strike. Really, one of two things is happening there. If you dispute it and your video producer gives you the license, which is very easy to do, you just Google, or you can even look on Epidemic, that give you a very clear walkthrough. It's basically a link, you clear the thing, they see that the license is associated based off of the account that we pay for as video producers. Or, let's say you don't do that. Nowadays, it's super easy. All that's happening on YouTube is they're rerouting the money or the monetization that's being made off of that video from the video producer or the channel to the people that own the copyright.
Oh,
and that's
I didn't know that. Just on the back end, it just kind of happens.
That's it, right? Because there's really two different ways that music gets monetized on YouTube. One is called UGC, user-generated content. And that's the thing that I just talked about, right? So like if you or I, Eric, we do a cover of a song, right? We just sit we're acoustic and we do the thing and we tag it, Adele's, whatever the case might be. The title is going to trip this system. It's called Content ID system to say, okay, this isn't Eric's song, obviously, but we're not going to take the video down because it's getting views and they're running ads against it. And now the publishing community is actually comfortable enough saying, hey, that's fine. Like the intent of making a song is that as many exploitations of it as possible. So let's let the view count go. Let's let the ad money stack up. Eric doesn't get the money. Adele's publishing company does. Dude, so they're literally just, like on a railway where you're just switching the tracks.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. They're just like moving the money from one place to the other.
How long have they not been pulling them down for? Like, that's fairly new?
It's been a while. Like I remember in the early days of what I was doing, I literally got brought on to Universal because they're like, we need to start licensing this brand new thing called YouTube. We don't know what to do with it. And I was like, oh, I'm on YouTube every day, So that's like where it started. So
they let the plays keep going up because of the advertising money. No way. Okay. For some reason I thought they pull it, but
so they did for a long time, right? Okay. If we all remember, kind of like I think it would be something that's all nostalgic for us at this point, but like the upside down sad face of YouTube, where it's like the static on the background. That's what we remember. And I, some of my good friends from the early Universal days, like that's what their job was to hunt those things down, put in a claim, and have the song taken down.
So all the artists, the record labels, the publishers, so they've all agreed that this is a better route because the video can still get views and the right people can still get paid.
Exactly. So that's YouTube. On your smaller social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, those sorts of things, the publishing community and those platforms have agreed on what's called a blanket license. And a blanket is basically what you would think it is, right? And I talk about it this way. Like, if I want to go to sleep but I want to be warm, I'm not going to like put a hodgepodge of things on top of me to keep me warm. I'm going to pull a blanket over my entire body, right? And so that's what this licensing agreement is. It says, we're going to pay you a sum of money a very large sum of money. And all of the content that we want to use on this platform is going to be cleared under that agreement.
Okay.
Right? That's not like a brand new novel concept. It's just being applied in this brand new novel way. Because if you think about radio, you think about TV, you think about like when you walk into Starbucks and music's playing, like that idea is basically the same thing as what they're doing on these social networks at this point.
Okay.
But it took them a while to figure out that that's like the thing that they wanted to do and what was okay, you know? So same type of thing. It's like they kind of figure out who's getting the most plays. They distribute what that money against what those metrics are. But it's that blanket license that's happening on those platforms as of now. They had just started the conversation recently of renegotiating what those licensing deals are. Initially, it was supposed to be like, hey, can you just let us figure it? The platforms were saying, can you let us figure this out? Here's a bunch of money to go away and let us see how this platform matures. And so they're kind of starting to have these conversations again. So if you're watching this in the future, it may be different. But that's the YouTube is the rerouting of funds, or the license that's applied from the music library that you subscribe to. And the online stuff, the smaller short form content is these blanket licenses that are put out. And it's evolved quite a bit. Like over the last couple of years, it used to be if you had a business account, you couldn't use popular music.
Right.
You had to license something and be able to provide what the library
the
music.
The creator accounts had more cool music to use.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And the blanket of songs, like let's say, okay, TikTok, let's say the blanket, say there's like 1,000 artists with like 10,000 tracks available. Are those going to be different artists than what's part of like the Instagram blanket, the grouping of
probably not.
You think
probably not?
Okay.
It's usually kind of like there are definitely some exclusions, and that's based on contractual territories and certain types of approvals that are within that contract, right? So like, this is not a one-to-one example, but like Prince really never wanted anyone to touch any of his music in terms of the cover, so he would make it as difficult as possible for people to use his music, right? So there are certain things like that, but by and large, like it's
like Ozzy's on TikTok. It's likely that his stuff's also available
for
on
sure.
Instagram, unless you said they did a specific agreement where I think the Beatles, I remember did something where I think we're on, was it Spotify for a while or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's changed, but I remember Paul McCartney. They were like trying to work out something with him for the streaming platforms and stuff.
Totally. The way that those things tend to operate is that if you're negotiating in good faith on one platform, like the stuff tends to travel across those, you do the same type of deal from an Instagram to a TikTok to a Facebook to a Snapchat, those sorts of things. Small nuances, but similar idea, similar idea.
Yeah, I think that's important because, with so much content going out these days, vertical, long form, even podcast stuff. Yeah. I know Apple Podcasts has flagged some stuff in the past. I'm not sure how that goes now.
Yeah.
And let's say you're a bigger production, maybe corporate enterprise level, or just a big creator with a budget. Let's say you wanted to license like a song directly from an artist. Like say you wanted to put an Ozzy Osbourne song in your video. Obviously the costs associated with that are probably a ton more. And kind of how does that work?
Yeah. So it's not as dissimilar as you may think. First, R.I.P. Ozzy, and proud and honored to say that I was able to watch him a few different times in my lifetime. But great reference, and I'm appreciative that you said that.
Current affair.
But yeah, so that environment is not as crazy as people would think. But if we remember, we have to have those two sides licensed, right? That underlying composition and that master recording. And in most instances, what ends up happening in the process of being a songwriter or a recording artist is that you sign a publishing deal, and in that publishing deal, you grant the publishing company those bundle of rights that I was talking about earlier, right?
Right.
And then in the same context, when you do a recording agreement, right? You sign to a record label, they tend to own the master recording that they're paying for, right? That's kind of the arrangement that's at stake. So if I want to use an Aussie track, I have to go to that respective publisher and that respective record company and say, hey, we want to use this track in our production. And then the publisher comes back, the record company comes back. They usually do this kind of in tandem with one another, like you're having these conversations at the same time. Mm-hmm. They come back and they go, great, like, give us some more information about this.
Okay.
Like, who's the director? What is the scene? How long do you want to use the song for? Is it something where you can see people performing the song, right? It's called a visual instrumental or a visual vocal. Or is it just going to be something that's playing in the background, right? Background instrumental, background vocal. Is it
a movie,
just the music section?
Commercial,
right?
Just a commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering why I keep looking down, Eric's down here for me, and so like if I'm doing that sort of thing, that's I should have said that at the front of the recording, but
the cost associated with it's probably impossible to say. We're talking like tens of thousands of dollars.
It depends. It really depends. The interesting thing about this is that it's an agreement that's called willing buyer, willing seller.
Okay.
And what makes music so unbelievably unique is that we can point to a dozen different situations, Eric, in which the cost of music or the perceived cost of that music can change drastically.
Okay.
Even the same song across a multitude of instances. So where synchronization licensing is concerned, depending on where it's being used in the production dictates what that cost would look like. But the artist can also say, the songwriter can also be like, hey, I just love this production. I want to be able to give this to them. If they own the rights, I just want to be able to give this to them in what's called a gratis license, right? Which is basically a free thing.